Hey everyone, this is Mike, and today I thought I'd do something a little bit different than what I usually do. And that is, I'm going to be making some kind of a guide slash walkthrough of all of the Eden Savage encounters. Now, I'm going to be doing this through the use of my clear videos, so you're going to be seeing everything from a tank perspective. But for all of the mechanics that I thought needed extra visual guidance, I guess you could say, I made a few diagrams earlier today as well, so I'm going to be using those to try and explain some of the other mechanics as well. So with that being said, let's hop into the first one, which is Eden 1, of course. This fight is relatively simple. There's also a lot of guidance that you can use from the floor. As you can see, there's like little symbols on the floor that you can use. First mechanic, Eden's Gravity, is just a rate-wide damage ability. The special thing about the ability is the fact that it is darkness damage. So you can't use stuff like Harder Light or Dark Knight's Alternative, or stuff like Adel and such. It doesn't work on that. So you need to use stuff like Reprisal or Troubadour, those kind of things. So what just happened was all of the DPS got targeted by markers. They just need to spread out. These are puddles, stand in them and they explode. Pretty simple stuff. Eden's Flare is a circle AoE around him, so just stand inside the hitbox. Still pretty simple stuff. It's pretty much the same as normal mode, just that you need that you don't see the AoEs themselves. This is also the same as normal mode, the double tank buster cleave thing. So just have your two tanks spread out in front. Now Spear of Paradise is a bit different than before. So in normal mode, Spear of Paradise was just a tank buster that hit twice. In Savage, it actually applies a physical vulnerability up damage on its first hit, so you need to tank swap in between both hits. Alternatively, you could use a tank invulnerability, but if you do that, you still need to tank swap after the two hits because of the vulnerability lasting for 30 seconds. After this, your two healers get targeted with prey. Two tanks need to grab these prey markers because these are heavy hitting tank busters. So you're gonna need to use cooldowns for this again as well. Now, if you use your cooldowns late into the double tank buster, they should still be up for the spray. Like, as you can see, my rampart barely fell off, but if I used it a bit later, then it would still be up for this. So that's first phase. It's gonna jump to the furthest away corner. So the reason why Eden is positioned slightly off center is so that he always jumps to the same corner when he does this jump mechanic. This makes it easier because then we all know where he's gonna jump, so we don't have to orient ourselves depending on where he jumps to. And it'll also make it easier for the upcoming mechanic Delta Attack, because everybody will be positioned in the same place every single time. So for Delta Attack, this time I'm gonna take out one of my pictures. One thing as well is keep in mind again with the markings on the floor. So let me take out the first Delta Attack picture, this thing right here. So Eden is going to do three things. He's going to target all players with a fire AoE, which are the red dots. He's going to do an ice AoE around himself, and he's going to do two line AoEs in a cross pattern across the arena. Basically, if you get hit by any of these, you die, and then the red flares you need to spread out as well. Now, one thing you can use to like gauge how far you need to be away from the boss is these symbols on the floor. So basically the ice AoE is gonna go just about as far as these. So we use this to spread out. And then of course we have all of our ranged people be far away in the corners, so that we don't get hit or that we don't clip each other. After this, some rate-wide damage again, going into the very first dimensional shift. There's two different dimensional shifts. For the first one I didn't make anything because it's pretty simple. We all stack together, and after Paradise Lost we get 5 AoEs underneath us, I believe, if I am not mistaken. And then once those 5 AoEs are done, Pure Beam stops, and we all need to spread out. So as you can see, there is 8 of these white balls around the arena, or around Eden. Again, these all correspond with these tiles. Basically what you want to do is you want one person for each ball. The ball targets the nearest player to it, So you basically want to spread out close to your ball as possible, aim it outwards, so that all the AoEs go in a nice line outside. Again, these give magic vulnerability up, so if one person gets hit by 2, they die. And then Eden is going to jump to a random corner. Now, the one way you can sort of predict this is right before the cast, he's going to face one of the corners. So for melee uptime, you can kind of see where he's going. And that's the first dimensional shift. Pretty simple stuff. And then I'm going to fast forward a little bit, because this is just rate-wide damage. And some more rate-wide damage going into the add phase. Here you go either south or north. We decided to stack up south, because the 2 adds are going to drop down. This phase is almost exactly the same as normal mode as well. Both tanks just grab 1 at each. We also decided to pull them together. So stuff that have... oh wait, actually, let me say this first as well. So when you first grab them, they're going to do mana boost, I believe it's called. Yep. This needs to be silenced. Since tanks have the silence always on their hotbar now, both tanks can just silence this easy enough. Now, the reason why we pull them together instead of keeping them far apart is because, first of all, they don't get tethered, so you can have them together. And second of all, if you have jobs that have AoE skills that are free, say for example, we have a Dragoon, you could use Dragonfire Dive, Gyrus Kogel, Nastrond, those kind of things. Our Monk, for example, could use Elixir Field. Our Red Mage has Contra 6, I believe it's called. So a lot of jobs have free AoE abilities, or even AoE abilities that are stronger when there's already 2 mobs, like for example Edge of Darkness or Flood of Darkness from Dark Knight. So that's why we have them together, just so that we can kind of pad on the adds to make them go down faster. After the mana boost, well, basically if you let mana boost complete, they get a huge damage up buff and they just kill everyone. But after this they just cleave the tanks. Mana burst is a rate wide, and then they cleave the tanks and mana burst some more. So it's basically just a repeat of these 2 mechanics. We just burst 1 down as fast as possible, so that the second one, there's only 1 more mana burst if we see a second mana burst. So that's pretty much that phase, pretty simple. Just tank and spank. Just make sure that the 2 bosses are not facing the same way, because then the tanks will take 2 cleaves instead of just 1. And then we have our giant long cutscene, which I'm going to skip through. So this takes way too long. And then we go into phase 2. Now for phase 2, a lot of the mechanics are going to be repeats, but they are going to be different. So a lot of the symbols that you saw earlier are going to be different, because Eden just used Eden's Paradise or something. And this gives him this buff over here. Now, whenever he has this buff, all of the mechanics he uses from phase 1 will be different. So I'm gonna let it play out right here. So this is again the double tank cleave, but instead of just having the tanks having to face these away from the party, we're going to use the party to soak the damage for the tanks. Because of this, you also don't really need to use cooldowns. So we just spread out into 2 groups. I think we just did melees on one side with the off tank, and yeah, that's it. Maybe like the ranged or something, and then me as the main tank, and then the 2 healers and another ranged over here, so that the melees can keep positionals on the back. This one again is the 4 AoEs from the beginning. This time we're gonna have to soak them as a team, so we just positioned our melees in the front with the tanks and our ranged in the back with the healers. Pretty simple stuff. And then now we have the second delta attack. Now this one is a bit different. The mechanics that go out are still the same. They're still fire AoEs, they're still thunder, and they're still ice. But this time they're kind of reversed. So I'm going to take out picture number 2. So the ice, instead of being around Eden, is now going to be the whole arena except around Eden. The thunder AoEs, instead of being lines across the field, are now 2 thunder AoEs on the tanks. These are tank busters, so use cooldowns for these. And the fire AoEs, instead of being a spread mechanic, is going to be a stack mechanic. So the way we handle this is we have the 2 tanks in front of the boss, and we have the whole party at the back of the boss, so to make sure that nobody dies. Now, Of course, as you can see, lightning resistance down, the 2 tanks cannot stack for this, or you will die as well. Another Vice and Virtue. This is what used to be the tank buster that starts on the healers, but instead of being a tank buster this time, it is a physical vulnerability up as well as a healing down, meaning that the healers need to give it away to DPS because healers wouldn't be able to heal otherwise. And you can't give it to the tanks because it gives physical vulnerability up, and then tanks would just die to the auto attacks of Eden. So that's why we decided to give it to our 2 melees over here. They also get a dot on themselves, so the healers need to make sure that these keep healed. And here it is the double tank buster Spear of Paradise again, just the same as the previous phase. And at this point he's also lost the Eden's Paradise buff, or Paradise Regained, whatever it was called. So Dimensional Shift 2. Now this one is a bit more complicated than the previous one. I've also made a diagram for this one. But first we're going to have to look at what these do. So let me pull up the diagram and then we're going to go back into the VOD as well. So there's 4 meteors that spawn. These need to die before the meteors finish reaching the ground or you die. But there's also 4 of those white balls again that spawn. Now, as you can see, these white balls have arrows around them, meaning that the AoEs that you need to bait from them are going to go into those directions. So if I take this picture here again, you want to bait the AoEs on the outside of the arena so that the middle is always safe, meaning that all of the people that are not baiting can just stand in the middle, DPS the meteors, and DPS Eden once the meteors are dead. And then all of these AoEs just take place on the outside of the arena. The way you bait them is you just stand as close to them as possible, and then depending on which side they're going to rotate to, you want to bait them on a specific side. So the ones that are on the outside, this one for example is going to go counterclockwise, so you want to bait it over here. This one is going clockwise, so this one you want to bait somewhere over here. So I'll just let this play out real quick. So you can see the bard over here is baiting this side, and then the AoEs will spawn, there we go, and then they will start rotating. So at this point, once the AoEs have spawned, everybody can just go to the middle and then just let the AoEs play out whilst you kill the meteors. And those are pretty much all of the mechanics. After this he just jumps to another corner, again stand behind him, and then we go back to the middle. As a tank you don't have to pull him in because he drags himself to the middle, so pretty nice. If you're playing something like a Gunbreaker, it's kind of annoying to pull bosses because of the amount of GCDs that you have. But yeah, pretty much from here on out it's just going to be a repeat of mechanics that you've already seen. Eden's Gravity again, Darkness Damage Raid Wide, so use shields for this, not stuff like Heart of Light. And then I'm just gonna skip through because I don't think I missed anything. Eden's Flare, again gonna be that donut AoE. It's not really a donut because you can't outrange it, but you get the point. Vice and Virtue, this is again the double tank buster. And then it's another Spear of Paradise, and then it just kind of repeats from there. So we're going to be seeing a few more attacks. So the DPS markers again, I believe it's going to be the Delta attack, and then maybe the healer markers as well, I'm not entirely sure about that. Or it might just be the last dimensional shift. Nah, it is indeed the 2 healer markers. So these are again tank busters now because he's not in the Paradise form. And then it's one last dimensional shift to finish off the fight. This dimensional shift is the same as the second one, so just handle it the same as you did with the second dimensional shift. And yeah, that's pretty much the whole fight. So just bait them in the correct positions so that the AoEs go to the outside of the arena, whilst you kill the meteors on the middle of the arena. So yeah, pretty simple fight. The most annoying thing I guess you could say about this fight is if these meteors or these AoEs are baited into the wrong side. If they go through the middle of the arena, it's pretty much a wipe. because you won't be able to survive it, as they also give magic vulnerability up, I believe. So if you get hit by a few of them, you're pretty quickly going to drop dead. So, with that being said, let's move on to number 2. This fight is all about positioning the boss and positioning as a team. And there's also slight randomness to the mechanics. So first mechanic he does is Cleaver, or Doom Void Cleaver, or something like that. This is basically an AoE on every single party member, so you just want to spread out for this, so you don't clip each other. Just like with normal mode, he's going to spawn these ghost dudes. You basically just don't want to get hit by these because they give damage down and healing received down, I believe. So just don't get hit by those. We just have an AoE. Guillotine is the line AoE through the arena. So you just want to be on the side of the boss, watch where the ghosts are going to be going, and then just move in. Dark Fire, just normal AoE markers. Like, most of the mechanics of these boss are the same as they are in normal mode, but a lot of them, like the time mechanic is a little bit different. So, Spell and Waiting. This mechanic isn't random anymore. So these will always have 4 spots around the boss and 4 spots in the corners, meaning that you can just assign your 4 melees, your 2 tanks, your 2 melees, to the spots close to the boss, and then your 4 ranged players away from the boss. Same as with normal mode, every time you use a spell in waiting, the players that are targeted will receive a debuff. The debuff starts counting down, and then once it counts down, that's when it happens. So as you can see, our AoE players are now counting down from 5 to 0, so they know they need to spread out, and then they explode. And then we have 2 more markers that are remaining. We have a stack marker and a gaze attack. Now there's also going to be 2 DPS that are targeted by Hellwind. Now Hellwind basically makes them drop to 1 HP when the cost stops, meaning that they can't be part of the next mechanic, or that they need to be healed before the next mechanic resolves. So in this case, the DPS are going to drop to 1 HP when a stack marker goes out, meaning that the 2 people that get targeted with prey can't stack for the stack marker. Also want to look away from the person with the eye, because they are going to be having a gaze attack, so you need to look away from that. Easy way to resolve this is you just have the person with the gaze go max melee, everybody else stacks here behind the boss, and then the 2 DPS players that had the prey marker, they just stand around the boss somewhere over here or something, so that they don't get clipped by the stack marker. Shadow Flame is a tank buster. It's both of the tanks. Actually, in this tier, pretty much all of the tank busters need to be shared in between the 2 tanks. So it's either like a tank swap tank buster, or like in this case, a double tank buster. Entropy is just a rate-wide AoE, and then he's going to tether to the hand. Now you don't see an indication of where the hand is other than this tether, and then also like the fact that there's a giant hand there, but I didn't look over there, so you don't see it. Now there are 2 different tethers. So in normal mode you only had the knockback tether. In Savage you have a knockback tether, and you also have a cleave tether. So the orange one is a cleave tether, meaning that we all have to go to the other side of the arena, because there's going to be a giant AoE. This one is quite big. After this he'll always do Guillotine, so just aiming towards the end of the map. Move around, and then he'll do Slicer. This is a mechanic we haven't seen yet, but this is basically just stand in his hitbox and you'll be fine. After this he's also going to spawn some more ghosts. So once you've done this, make sure you see that and dodge them correctly. As you see, the hand spawned again on this side of the map, this time with a purple tether, meaning that he's going to do a knockback. The knockbacks are so far apart that you can use arm's length or sure cast for all of them. So yeah, just use sure cast here so you don't get thrown off, or stand close to the hand so that you don't get pushed off the arena. Cleaver again, which is the spread mechanic. And then it's double Tank Buster again, so use cooldowns for this. Another Raid White. And I think at this point you've pretty much seen all of the mechanics that the boss has to offer. It's just going to be that there's going to be multiple combinations of spell in waiting plus other spells. So this Hellwind one is going to be delayed, so the two people with Prey need to be wary of that. These flare markers just spread out to the edge of the arena. I'm main tanking at this point, but usually when, like, if you want to optimize this, you'd probably tank swap at this point so that the flare, that the boss doesn't get dragged away. Like this, so that your melees can have more uptime. Another spell in waiting, which is going to be the eyes. I think there's two of these. No, there's only one. And this is the reason why you'd want to tank swap. So what you want to do here, since there are two things happening, well, three things actually. So you have these AoEs that are all going off. When you stand in them, you get a bleed. Doesn't do much damage, but it still does damage. Now, together with this, there's going to be the eye that explodes once this resolves. But the two DPS players with the Prey are also dropping to 1 HP. So once the 1 HP mechanic resolves, the healers need to heal them up as soon as possible so that they can go stand in the bleed puddles. So DPS drop to 1 HP, they stand in the puddles, and then here in the back, it is this time, we have our gaze mechanic. So just look away from that, and then the mechanic resolves. Another double Tank Buster. And another Raid White AoE damage. This is a new mechanic, but for people that have done Sophia before, they will know the mechanic. Basically, the white people need to stack together with the blue/black people. So easy enough, just split up in pairs. It's always going to be tanks and healers that get marked with different colors. So tanks and healers always have one color, and the DPS always have the other, so you can just assign pairs to who wants to stand with who. And then we just have another combination of Doom, Void, Slicer, Guillotine, and Cleaver. So just handle these accordingly. And then you have a little bit of free time to do some DPS. Another double Tank Buster. And another Raid White. And then it's another spell and waiting combination. So these flare markers are going to be exploding later. We have a red tether going to the hand, meaning that you need to be far away from it. Another spell and waiting. This time it's a stack marker. And then we have our flare markers go to the edge of the arena because they are going to explode soon. And then these flare markers are also spell and waiting, so you don't have to move away from them just yet. Heal up quickly so that everybody can stack together for the stack marker. And then here I tank swap, I believe, with my off tank, so that when I have to run away, I don't have this thing. There's another Tank Buster. Trying to reposition the boss. Here we tank swap, so that when I have to run away, the boss doesn't come chasing again like last time. Another spell and waiting. This time it's two Shadow Eyes, so just make sure you don't look at either of them when they resolve. These Shadow Eyes will resolve together with the flares. So flare people go to the edges and look to the outside of the arena so that you don't get hit by the Shadow Eyes. And then the Shadow Eyes just go max melee again. These things are the flares again, so just spread out so that they don't hit the rest of the party. Do the Sophia mechanic, and then once you resolve this, everybody goes back to their predetermined positions so that these don't explode. And then we have Doom Void Cleaver again, which is the spread out mechanic. And then I think we're about ready to go into the final phase. The final phase has 3 different mechanics, which are basically a combination of Cleaver, Slice, and Guillotine, depending on the name. Now, the way that we decided to handle this is anytime it's Chaos, it starts with Cleaver. No, it starts with Guillotine, meaning that you have to be on the side of the boss, and then it gets followed up by some stuff on the inside of the boss. Whereas if it's any of the other 2 mechanics, it's going to start with the Cleaver or Slice. Quietus is a big rate-wide damage ability, so just mitigate this. And then we have Cycle of Retribution. So this one starts off with Slice, then into Cleaver, then into Guillotine. So you need to be really fast with this. You also need to try and dodge all of these goes because they still give damage down. So we don't want to get hit by those. And then we're on to the next set of mechanics. Cycle of Chaos. This one starts with Cleaver. With Guillotine, I mean. Need to try and dodge the ghosts. So I got hit here. A lot of people are getting hit here, by the way. It's kind of annoying to dodge if it's Guillotine first. And then there's of course a final one, which starts with Guillotine, then into Cleaver, then into Slice. But then we're basically onto the Soft and Rage. He's just going to spam Quietus a few times. And then also some other stuff, like I think he's going to do another cycle here. Yeah, he does. So yeah, all about this phase is just handling these mechanics correctly, dodging ghosts, so that you don't get hit by the damage downs, because the damage downs are a pretty big deal, especially if you're trying to kill this fight in the first few weeks, because you don't have the gear for it yet. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole fight. He's just going to do a few Quietuses, and then he's going to go into his Enrage, which is also Quietus, I believe. So yeah, that is the second fight. And then we shall move on to my boy Leviathan. A lot of people were kind of disappointed that Leviathan and Titan were coming back. I was pretty excited about Titan, because the mechanics that we saw in normal mode were pretty cool. The Leviathan mechanics we saw in normal mode, everybody was like, well, it's just a Shinryu 2.0. So people didn't really like it. Now, a little bit different from normal mode is that both of your tanks need to be first and second in aggro. Before, in normal mode, it just targeted the main tank and then the other tank. Didn't matter where they were on the aggro scale. Here you need to be first and second in aggro. So that's why we're both in our tank stance. My tank shirks me at some point in the opener, so that I stay first, because there's going to be a tank buster coming as well. Rip Current, same as normal mode. You're going to get this marker. It's going to be a very big line AoE. Again, different from normal mode is that it's going to hit twice and give you a magic vulnerability up. This magic vulnerability up only lasts for a few seconds. So there's 2 ways to handle this. Either you do a tank swap and you both take it, or you're using vulnerabilities for it. I decided to use my Superbolite here, so that we don't have to use that many cooldowns for this mechanic. Now, here we have 2 mechanics going on at the same time. Right before the Undersea Earthquake, he cast a Tidal Wave. So again, left or right is going to be a Tidal Wave, and that mechanic is going to resolve at the same time as the Undersea Quake. Now, there's 2 ways you can handle this. The easiest way to do it is by the time that the Undersea Quake stops casting, you use Arm's Length and Surecast. Because if you do it like that, then the Tidal Wave won't matter. You will always be able to use Surecast for the Tidal Wave, if you want to. Now, if you accidentally pressed it too soon, or you use it like you fat fingered it during another mechanic or something like that, it is still possible to stand on the side of the tidal wave and not get knocked off. Like for example, our white mage is over here somewhere. He didn't use it, so as you can see, he just gets knocked back. And it's pretty close, so you need to stand on the edge pretty much. Temporary current, same as normal mode. This time there's just no AoE indicator, so just stand on the side that Leviathan is not at. And then he's just gonna do that. Then we all decide to stack up in the middle to bait our AoEs. For Drenching Pulse, this is the same mechanic as normal mode. Everybody else spread out afterwards to drop your AoEs. Then he's gonna do the temporary current again. So just go to the other side. He'll always do left, then right, or right, then left. So it's kind of predictable what he's gonna do here. And then the platform is back. Now after him we have Maelstrom. We started calling it Meme Storm because it's kind of a boring, simple mechanic, although people still get hit by it quite often. It's pretty simple. You have the pass where Leviathan is gonna die from. You have the puddles on the ground that you want to avoid. Standing in the puddles is not too big of a deal. You have it a lot of times where some of our DPS get hit by it, or some other people as well. But the puddles basically deal a very low amount of damage, but they give you a heavy, meaning that you're going to move very slowly. It's basically made so that if you stand in a puddle, it's going to be harder for you to dodge the dives, pretty much. Like for example over here, one of our players stood in it. As you can see, they barely take damage, but they do get the heavy. Oh, and our healers stood in one as well. So the damage they do is very minimal. It's mainly the heavy that is a pain in the ass, because it's gonna make it difficult for you to avoid the dives. First time he uses it, there's only 2 dives, so it's not too difficult. Tidal Roar, rate-wide damage. So just use mitigation for this. Doesn't hurt too much. And then I think we're about ready to have our first tsunami. So after this starts resolving, people take a bunch of damage. This hits really hard, so use some mitigation for this. And now everybody is going to get some different debuffs. So there's 3 different debuffs that you can get. Or is it 4? Yeah, it's 4. I'm gonna take a drink real quick. So the 2 debuffs that you will see most of the time on everyone are the circles and the dots. The dots are an insta-kill mechanic, so if you do not cleanse these, you're pretty much gonna die at the end of the cast. The circles are a donut AoE around you. So the way that you resolve these is you pretty much stack up with other people. Then we also have 2 stack markers on our healers, meaning that you stack together with the healer so that they don't get clipped by your circle AoE. And then we also have 1 line AoE, which creates kind of like a mini tidal wave. If you get hit by this ability, you will cleanse your insta-kill mechanic. So what we have is the person with the tidal wave. This can be random, by the way. Can be a tank, a healer, or a DPS. We had them going to the front, so that everybody gets knocked back. Now, personally, I would have preferred if they went max melee so that we get knocked back to the front. But this requires a little bit better positioning because the knockback is actually quite big. So doing it like this is easier, but it is worse for melee uptime. But yeah, so basically the line AoE person stands in front. They look towards the group because the AoE is going to go off in the direction that you're looking. And then everybody that gets hit is going to get their dot AoE or like dot marker cleansed. So as you can see, all of the small dots are gone because we all got hit by the tidal wave. Now at the same time, Leviathan is going to cast Undersea Quake. So he's going to this time destroy the middle of the arena. So we decide to spread out in 2 groups. We have 1 tank, 1 healer and 2 DPS on each side. Stick to these groups for later as well, because he's gonna do something similar later, where you will need pretty much a tank, a heal, and 2 DPS, preferably a ranged and a melee on each side, so that you can get used to it for the next mechanic. So people spread out in their 2 groups. Middle of the arena is gone. Now, before you stack up with your healer, look at which side Leviathan is facing first, because he's going to do another temporary current. So since he's on the right, these people need to run to the back, and we need to move to the front. And then while we dodge it, we stack up with our healer, so that when our circle AoE resolves, it'll be a donut around all of us, and then we stack together with the healer, so that they don't die. After this, rate-wide damage, and then there's going to be the double tank buster again. You can tank swap during this, and you can even still shirk each other, but if you want to shirk each other, you both need to stand really close, as close as you can on the inside of the platform, because otherwise it won't work. For this rip current, we just have my paladin hallowed ground, so that our healers don't have to worry about healing too much, and that we just have our cooldowns for if we want to use them for auto attacks or something like that. And then he does another temporary current, this time the other direction. And that is the first tsunami. So platform is gonna come back. Another Tyler Roar, just AoE damage, mitigate this. And now Leviathan is gonna buff up. This is kind of like when Eden buffs up as well. So all of his mechanics are going to have extra properties to it now. So Tidal Rage is the new rate-wide damaging attack. This one hits a bit harder, so make sure you have mitigation for that one. Tidal Wave still the same. You still can dodge it by just standing on the side of the platform, or by using your arm's length. The timing is still the same with the Undersea Quake. Our healer forgot to use arm's length here, so it's kind of rip. Now, Temporary Current is one of the abilities that gets buffed. So when he uses it now, he's going to use it twice in quick succession. Meaning that, since we were on the right first, right as this resolves, we have to move to the left, so that we don't get hit by the second one. Again, Drenching Pulse, we stack up in the middle. First part is still the same, you bait the AoEs, just standing together. The second part is a bit different though. So everybody still gets their AoE on top of them, but this time they're gonna leave behind puddles. Standing in a puddle gives you a very high damage dot, so you don't want to stand in those. So what we do is we spread out into two groups, tanks in front, melees, then ranged and healers, both on one side of the arena, but we make sure that we keep enough space in the front, because Leviathan is going to do another temporary current, so that everybody can stack up either in the front or in the back of the arena. I think our Bard and our other healers stayed in the back, everybody else went to the front. You dodge it the same way, stand on the safe side, move to the other one. Our healer ran back to the middle, so he ended up dying. So definitely make sure that when he is glowing, all of his mechanics are going to be a little bit different. After this we have our second Maelstrom. This one is pretty much the same as the first one, but instead of having 2 dives, there's going to be 3. Now, the way you handle this is he's always going to cover the whole platform. But the way you handle it is you just move into where the first dive came from. So he dived from left first, he's now diving from behind me. So I need to go over to this side and then dodge downwards, because the next AoE is going to come from here. So once he dives here, we move in, and now we're in the safe spot. There's a few different patterns, but pretty much it's always going to be the first dash, and then there's either going to be one here or here, and then depending on where that dash comes from, you just stand in where the last safe spot is going to be, and then just move into the first one. Relatively simple to dodge. Another Tyler Rage. Another Rip Current. This time we don't have our invulnerabilities up, so Paladin takes the first hit, I provoke, and I take the second hit with some cooldowns. And then we have our new mechanic. Stormy Horizon. For the most part, you're just going to be moving as a team for this, because you're going to be baiting puddles. The only thing that's different is for your tanks, because one of your tanks is going to be targeted with this flare, which is why we start on one side, we move to the middle. After this, our team is going to run to A, I'm going to run to the back. Leviathan is going to do temporary current at this time, meaning that the group needs to dodge to the left of A, I need to dodge to the back right. With my flare marker, you don't need to pop cooldowns for this, doesn't really hurt that much. So that resolves, temporary current resolves, but because he's glowing, he's gonna do one from the other side of the arena. So the team moves from the left to the right. I could have moved from the right to the left in the back, but because I wanted more uptime, I'm sprinting to the front. So as soon as this resolves, I just sprint to the front to go stack with my team. This marker is kind of like an Akmorn, is going to deal a few hits of damage, so just use some mitigation for this. But don't use too much mitigation, because we are saving our mitigation for the next tsunami mechanic, as we will need some extra mitigation for that one. So 2 tidal rages, just heal through this, and then we're going to go into the next tsunami. Got some free time to DPS the boss. Alright, there's first Drenching Pulse. This one's also pretty important for the way you handle this, so stack up in the middle for the same. Since he's glowing, he's gonna leave behind the dot puddles, but we can actually make the dot puddles pretty much completely irrelevant. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna split up in our 2 teams again, left and right, but we're gonna bait the puddles outside of the platform that's gonna remain. So he's gonna do Undersea Quake again. After these puddles resolve, move to the middle so that you don't get knocked off. And then when he destroys the platforms, he takes the dot puddles with him. Problem is, I was a little bit too close to the boss, so my dot puddle remained, but this is going to be going away when it is relevant. So doing it like this basically just gives you some more space. Again, Tsunami hurts a lot. Now, we have some more mechanics to deal with. So first of all, everybody has the kill mechanic now, so everybody has a dot, meaning that you have to get hit by a tidal wave at some point. Other than the tidal wave, we have 2 cone AoEs. One is going to be on a healer, one is going to be on a DPS. We have 2 stack markers, one is going to be on a healer, one is going to be on a DPS. We have a knockback marker, this one is always going to be on a DPS. And then the 2 tidal waves are gonna be on, I think it's always 1 DPS and 1 tank. And then the giant ball, I guess I'll call it for now, is always gonna be on a tank. So the way you handle this is, first of all, the DPS with the knockback goes to the front of the boss. Everybody cuts close, and they get knocked back when it revolves. There we go. Then we split up into 2 teams. Oh, actually 3 teams, kind of. So we have the DPS go on the left side, we have the healers go on the right side for their stack markers. This is where we need the extra mitigation, because normally you take these stack markers with 4 people. We're taking them with 3 people. So we have one of the DPS players, I guess to make it simple, the one that had the knockback marker or something goes to the right with the healers. And then you do it like this. So you have your 2 tanks stand in the front. You have your 2 stack markers in the back, and the 2 players that have the conal AoEs stand in the front of the stack, kind of. Because these are going to do cleaves towards the 2 furthest away people, meaning that it's going to hit me and the other tank. Here. So at this point, all of the mechanics have resolved, except the knockbacks and the very big bubble. So for now, the DPS that has the tidal wave needs to go stand in the front, because that one's going to resolve first, so everybody gets ready to get knocked back by him. Then the tank tidal wave is going to resolve, so everybody and the DPS that had the tidal wave need to stand in front, because he still has the dot, need to stand in front, and they get knocked back into the boss. Then I sprint back to the boss, because in the end, the tank big bubble is gonna explode, which is this AoE that you're seeing here. And then all of our debuffs are resolved. So he's going to do another temporary current. He's on the left, then he's going to go to the right, so don't forget to move for this. And that resolves the other tsunami. So I'm going to quickly go back a bit to show you how we handle it again. So first of all, DPS goes in front with the knockback. Then over here, tank here, DPS stack, healer stack. For the healer stack, have one DPS join them. The people with the cone debuff need to stand on the front of the stack so that they hit both of the tanks without hitting somebody else. Because these stack, you can briefly see it. Just rewind real quick. When these stacks resolve, see if I can... Yeah, so when the stacks resolve, you get magic vulnerability up, meaning that you can't get hit by a cone AoE or you die. So that's why the cones are baited on the two tanks. Oh, actually no, it doesn't matter. It's just so you don't take two stacks. But still, easy way to do this. First tidal wave in the front, look towards the team because it goes to where you're looking. Then the tank knocks them back. The last tank stays on the edge of the platform to resolve their big AoE. Then they can just use their gap closers to come back to the boss so you don't lose much uptime. And then you have double temporary current. So this tsunami is all about having enough mitigation for the stack markers and then just baiting everything correctly. Another tidal rage. So just use some mitigation for this. And then I think we are about ready to go into the last mechanic of the fight. Another rip currents. Since my Superbolite is back up, I'm just going to use Superbolite for it. I highly recommend that you use your invulns for this tank buster, because you're going to want to have your full cooldown suite available for the next mechanic. So, Roiling Pulse, new mechanic. Stack up in the middle to bait this. He's going to do an Undersea Quake, destroying the middle. Again, split into your two groups. Healer, 2 DPS, tank on one side and the other. Both tanks will get a flare marker, both healers will get a stack marker. So we move the tanks to the back so that our melee DPS can have the uptime. Healers and DPS in the front so that they take the least amount of damage as possible from the flare. And then as this resolves, we're gonna have to assume positions. So all these mechanics are baited on people. So you want your tanks to be as close to the boss as possible, because they're going to be targeted by cleaves, and you want your ranged DPS as far away from the boss as possible, because they're going to be tethered, and when they're tethered, they're going to be dropping puddles. And then we'll continue a bit, so that we can see the mechanics resolve. Now, on my platform, you're not really going to be able to see much, but you will see some on the other side of the platform. So I'm going to keep playing. This is where we want to use most of our cooldowns. These don't hit super hard, but because your healers will be moving a lot for this, it's going to be pretty useful to just roll through your cooldowns. You won't need them for anything later on, there's no more tank busters. So just rotate through your cooldowns so that you can use them to mitigate as much damage as possible. So, whilst the cleaves are going on, the person that is tethered is going to get puddles. And you don't want to overlap two puddles or they'll explode. So you want to spread them out in like a triangle pattern or something like that. Now, if you leave a puddle on the floor for too long, it'll also explode. So what you want to do is, you want to have one of your two free people, either the DPS or the healer, move into the first bubble to make it explode early. Then, as you can see over here, the people that take the first puddle get a magic vulnerability up, meaning that they can't take the second puddle. So for the second puddle, we have the other free person take it. Then third puddle, first person again, fourth puddle, second person again. And that resolves that mechanic. So the way you do it, tanks closest to the boss, pop mitigation. We have healer and melee DPS stand close to the boss still. Furthest away we have our ranged DPS. Ranged DPS drops puddles. and then the healer and the melee DPS that remain explode the puddles alternatively. So 1 and 3 gets exploded by the DPS, let's say, 2 and 4 gets exploded by the healer. You can change this around if you want, but you have something like this pattern. After this, is going to do temporary current again. He's on my side first, we need to run to the back. I'd highly recommend you pop sprint for this, because this is a double one. So you need to move in to the next safe spot before he does his second dash. And then it's another tidal rage. Just use stuff like reprisal and such. And then he's pretty much going to go into his softened rage. He's going to spam tidal rage a few times, and then it's going to be the enrage. So you have a lot of time to just do free DPS here. The calm is the cost for the soft and rage. So here is literally just burning the boss. You can spread out your mitigation a little bit, like use shields on one, troubadour on the next, heart of light on the next, spread out your reprisals and addles and such, so that healers don't have to heal as much and that they can just DPS as much as possible. So yeah, that is the third fight. It's a lot more fun than a lot of people thought it was going to be. I quite enjoyed progging through this fight. The tsunamis were really fun to figure out. So let's move on to like the fight that I think is amazing, which is Titan. Titan is incredibly fun. I made a lot of diagrams for this one. Well, a lot of diagrams. I made like 5 to explain some of the mechanics. A lot of the mechanics in Titan are random, kind of like the tsunamis, that different people get different debuffs, but there's also rotational differences with the boss. So, as we start pulling Titan, I pull him towards the back of the arena, so that our safe spots will always be the same. First thing he'll do is a triple tank buster. Now, if you've seen or done the Weapons Refrain Ultimate or Ultima Ultimate, this tank buster is pretty much the same in how you handle it. Either you use invulnerabilities, like I used my Superbolite for this one, for example, but you can also handle it with cooldowns. Now, if you want to do it with cooldowns, I'm going to rewind a bit, you're going to need to do a double tank swap during this. So it would be first tank buster on me, second tank buster on the Paladin, third tank buster on me, if you were to do it like that. We decide to just invulnerability them, because there's no other points where you really want to use your invulns. So these were some very good places to use them. Next mechanic, Weight of the Lands. These are random as well. So random tiles are going to be glowing. These can be any tiles on the field. So just adjust to these accordingly. Then they'll explode. You'll also see that everybody gets a yellow marker. There's 3 different markers in this fight. You have yellow, you have orange, and you have blue. The blue markers you don't see until the second phase. Yellow and orange are going to be shown very soon. So the yellow markers are pretty simple. It's going to drop a boulder on the platform that you're standing on, or on the tile that you're standing on, I guess you could say. And it's going to give you a magic vulnerability up, meaning that if you stack 2 together, you die. That's why we have 1 tile for every assigned to a player. And then we go into Evil Earth. This mechanic is the same as normal mode. It's just that there are 4 different patterns. They either start on the outside edge. You'll have one. We're gonna pull up the thingy again. You'll either have one on here and here, or you'll have one spawn top right and bottom left. The way you handle these mechanics are exactly the same. It's just that you'll choose a different safe spot. There's also a second pattern, which is on the inside. So they'll either spawn on these 2 tiles or on the other two tiles in the middle. So those are the 4 patterns that you can get. Now, the way you handle them is exactly the same. So this is the pattern that we had in our in the clear. So what you do is, because this corner tile is unsafe, you go to the opposite corner, you wait for 2 explosions, and then you move into this tile. If it is this pattern, we started calling this the fast pattern. you still move to the opposite corner, so this corner tile, but instead of waiting for 2 explosions, you only wait for 1 explosion before moving into this tile. So let's close these. So because it is over here, everybody moves into this corner. Because it's slow, we can greet for 1 extra GCD. We wait for the second explosion, we move in, and these are the orange tiles. The orange markers will drop boulders on people, but these boulders need to be stacked up, so this is kind of like a stack marker. So everybody stands on the same tile, the boulder drops, and then Voice of the Land is just some Wraith White AoE. After this, we pull Titan back to the middle, so it's easier to adjust to where he's going to jump and to keep more melee uptime. This mechanic is the same as in normal mode. You can use arm's length for this. Now, one thing that is very important is the mechanic that he's going to use next. So the next mechanic that he's going to use is also going to determine whether or not arm's length is going to be up for the next time he jumps. He can either use landslide or giga landslide or something, or he can use the car. If he uses the car, your arm's length won't be up for the second time he jumps. If he uses the landslide, your arm's length will be up. But then in the second phase, if he uses the landslide first, your arm's length won't be up for the first mechanic in the second phase. So it's kind of a trade-off there. So here we just look at what Titan is going to become first. He's becoming a car, meaning that everybody that has an orange marker stacks up next to the boss, and all of the yellows spread out next to Titan. And we have a beautiful diagram for this. So Titan is a car, the line that he's on is all going to be a kill zone, the orange markers stack up next to Titan, and then we spread out the 3 different markers over here. It's always going to be 1 tank, 1 DPS, 1 healer. The way we did it is if it was a melee DPS, they would call it out so that they're closest to Titan, so that they can hit 1 or 2 more GCDs. When you do this a few weeks later and gear is not as much of an issue anymore, you can do whatever with this, but we were doing everything to ensure as much melee uptime as possible, because the enrage was really hard to beat the first few times. So healer always in the back, and then you have like DPS and tank that could swap around, in our group at least, but you can just assign spots for each player. So in this case, I am the tank, but my melees both had the orange marker, so I'm closest to the Titan. Stand on the row that is next to him, because you're gonna get knocked back. And then 2 things are gonna happen. So first thing is, he's gonna have aftershocks. These aftershocks you don't have to worry about too much, because they resolve themselves as you do the mechanic. So everybody is on their own tile, these are all stacked together on their tile, they resolve, and as these resolve, the aftershocks kind of go off as well, so you can move back in. Now, Titan starts casting Fault Line. This is a jump to the main tank. This does more damage depending on how close you are to him. So if you stand very far away, it barely does any damage. If you stand closer, it will do more damage. And you want to bait him on a specific pattern. Now, the way we did it was, we have our main tank stand on the row that he dashed on, everybody else waits on the row next to him. To greet some more melee uptime, our melees are going to jump to the boss, which is a bit risky, but we really needed the extra DPS for our first week clear, so that's why they're going to jump over. So Fault Line finishes, jumps to me, because I'm main tank at this point. I also have cooldowns for this, so I don't take as much damage, because I'm relatively close to him. After this, Magnitude 5.0, same as normal mode. This is a donut AoE. After this, everybody gets a marker again, so just spread out in your own tiles, and it resolves. Now, that's the first mechanic combo. If he does the landslide combo, it's a bit longer of a mechanic string. After he does this mechanic string with the landslide or the car, he's going to go into the bomb phase. We decide to tank swap here. So 2 people will get 2 markers. Want to drop them on AB, the way we did it at least. The other 2 drop it on CD. If you have Titan in the middle and you have some shields up for this, you can have full melee uptime here. I decide to pop a rampart so that healers definitely don't have to worry about me. Our scholar was a bit too late from that side. And then here we have seismic wave, same as normal mode, hide behind the boulder, and then the bombs are going to explode. Now I'm going to rewind a bit, see where they dropped. So the middle line will always explode first, and then it either left or right that's going to explode. Now we ended up going to the side that explodes first. So if you're on the side that explodes, well, second I guess, you have to be really quick with your dodge. If you get hit by one of the bomb boulders, you will take a damage down, you will take a vulnerability up, and you'll also take a lot of damage. So if you're not a tank, or if you had no mitigation, you're probably going to be dead. After this, just rate-wide damage, and another triple tank buster. This one we have our Paladin Hallowed. Everybody can take these tank busters, except Warrior. If you want to take these tank busters as a Warrior, you're going to need to use mitigation for the very first attack, and then you can home gang the second and the third. There we go. And then we go into the second mechanic combo. Since the first mechanic combo that he used was Car, we know two things. The next one is going to be Landslide, and Arm's Length is not going to be up for this Geo Crush. So position yourself kind of diagonally, because otherwise you're going to get knocked off the map. And you handle this kind of the same. So since this time he is doing the Landslide, which hits the tiles next to him. I should have actually colored these red, but whatever. We have all of our stack markers go underneath Titan this time, and then we have melee DPS, tank, and then healer. So as you can see, this time our melee DPS got it, he called out front, so I take the second tile, and then our healer goes to the back tile, mechanic goes off. Again, this is gonna create an aftershock, so you move into safe spots, aftershocks goes off, and then he's gonna do another rate-wide damage attack. And then after this, he's going to do the big Landslide. For this one, you want to drag him kind of in the middle to see where he jumps towards. He's targeting this place, so we need to move into the safe spots. And for this one as well, I have a beautiful, beautiful diagram. So the location that Titan looks at is going to have two tile spaces on each side that are unsafe. So the only safe spots are in the corners that he doesn't jump towards. So as you can see, he's jumping to this one over here. So these two tiles, like these rows, are unsafe, and the two middle rows are unsafe as well. So we need to stand on these two tiles or on these two tiles to be safe. After he jumps, he's gonna spawn boulders and he's gonna create aftershocks. So you want to move away from the two safe spots because they're gonna explode now, as you can see over there. Then as the boulders are spawning, he's gonna do left or right Landslide. I was kind of disappointed that this was telegraphed. I was kind of expecting this to be just rightward or leftward Landslide and that you have to look at the cast. But yeah, it is what it is. So same as in normal mode, he's gonna cast it on the right side, meaning that after he casts this, the left side will have aftershocks, as you can see there. Move into the safe spot for the boulders, and then move into the second safe spot for the boulders. Boulders can spawn in two positions, either the corner and the middle explode first, or the middle tile and the middle explode first. So depending on which one dropped first, you want to go to the safe spots for those. And then after this we have our cool transition to Titan Maximum. I'll let the transition play out if you haven't seen it yet. It's kind of cool, although I wasn't really looking at it. And then we head into phase 2. If you're looking at the DPS check, what you kind of want to do is you want to do 30% on the first phase, 40% on the second, and 30% on the last phase again. So if you want to kind of gauge how good you're doing as you go through the phases, that's kind of what you need. Earthen Fury, just big rate white. And I was going to do Earthen Fist. So this mechanic is kind of random. He's going to smash the platform twice. And depending on which fists are glowing, he's either going to smash the same side twice or he's going to smash both sides. Now, since he charged his right fist twice, it means that this platform is going to get hit twice. After the first hit, a wave of the lance will spawn again, meaning that if he would smash that platform, now we'd move to the other side and dodge the weight of the lance here. There is enough time, so say all of these platforms would be red. There is enough time to move to the other side before he smashes this side. But he smashed the same side twice, so we just stand here, resolves like this. Then the next mechanic, if you've ever done Sephiroth, you'll know this marker. This is a knockback. This is the first mechanic where I was talking about. So if he does the big landslide first and then the car, you won't have arm's length for this. If he does car first, then landslide, you won't have arm's length for the landslide, but you will have arm's length for this. During this, there is also a blue marker that goes out, which is the last and final marker that you will see. This basically explodes tiles in a 1 block radius around you. So what you want to do with these is you always want to place them on a corner tile the next time you see them as well. So we have our DPS run away with this. I use my knockback invuln for this. Everybody else does as well to keep more uptime. And then the 2 tanks are going to get hit by a heavy hitting tank buster. This is also a very big AoE around them, so you really want to make sure your 2 tanks are spread out around from the group. These 2 tank busters are also aggro based, so you want to make sure that both of your tanks are first and second in aggro, because otherwise somebody in the group will get it and they'll just die. So both tanks get their tank buster. As you could see, the blue marker is also going to explode for these 3 tiles. Bam. Well, 4 tiles technically. So you definitely want to make sure your tanks don't get hit by this, because then they'll just die to the tank buster. After the tank buster, you're going to get a stack marker on one of your tanks. This is just a double tank buster again, but this time you just need to stack up for it. So definitely don't stack together as a group for that one, because it's just legit a tank buster. And after this, we're going to go into our very first plate mechanic. The way we handle this is we have our 4 DPS go in front, we have our tanks and healers go into the back, and everybody goes to the platform that is glowing. The glowing platforms will knock you up, and they will also rise up. They don't do damage, so even though it's an AoE marker, don't worry, it's not going to do damage. And the way we handle this is the 2 blue players, it's going to be 1 DPS, 1 tank or healer. They move into the platform that stays down. So we have our melee run to this corner. I get it, so I'm going to run to the far right corner of the map. And then as they explode, these explode as well. Now, the amount of safe spots that you get with your weight of the land will indicate what has to happen next. So next there's going to be 3 more markers given out. We're going to get 2 more blue markers. We're going to get 2 orange markers, which are a stack marker, and we're going to get 2 yellow markers, meaning they have to be on their own tile. So, since I only have 1 safe spot on my side, the orange markers need to drop down to my side. The 2 yellow markers will need to drop down to the front, because there's going to be 3 safe spots there. 1 for each yellow marker and 1 for the person that had the blue marker. So these explode, I go back to hit the boss a few times. Markers go out, so the 2 oranges come to me, the yellows go to the front. I gave them more uptime, but then I realized it's both ranged, so it didn't really matter. And then there's going to be Earth and Fury, so just use some mitigation for this, because it hits pretty hard. And then all the platforms go back to being normal. So again, to reiterate, blue stays down, blue stays down, DPS front, tanks healers back. If you get, look at how many safe spots there are on the bottom tiles, and then the one with 3 safe spots is where the yellow goes, the one with 2 safe spots is where the orange goes, and then the blue markers stay on the top tiles. So that's how that mechanic plays out, kind of like neat little puzzles. Rock throw doesn't really do much damage, doesn't do any damage actually, I think. And now Titan is gonna start smashing platforms. So depending on if he smashes with left or right, it means he's gonna smash one of the left or one of the right. You can use triggers. to know which one of the tiles it is going to be, which I think we started doing on the second day or the third day or something. But you can totally just look. The only thing you really gain is that you free your healer like 2 seconds earlier. So both of your healers are going to get goals. One needs to be placed in the front, one needs to be placed in the back, because if you stack up too close, they get tethered and they get a defensive buff, meaning that you just can't kill them. So yeah, since Titan is smashing one of the left platforms, both of our healers move to the right. And since we had a trigger calling out that was going to be the first platform, we knew we had to free our front healer first. But normally you wait until he smashes the platform and then you know, oh, I need to kill front or left first. Because after he does this, he's going to smash the same platform on the other side. So we free our healer, we move to the back because Titan is going to smash the front. If Titan would have smashed, let's say, back left first, we needed to free our back healer first, because that's what he would smash first, and then he smashes one of the remaining platforms as well. This time he's smashing right, so we move on the left platform. When you're here, the hitbox of Titan is very close to the edge. You can use gap closers, you can use jumps if you're a Dragoon and such, but you need to make sure that you're really on the tip of the platform, because if you're standing here whilst you're doing jumps and such, you will fall off. So you got to be really careful here. Like for example, our red mage as well had to be really careful when he used his displacement and engagement, or whatever it's called. So another Earthen Fury, just mitigate through it. It's going to do some tumults. These are just a couple of hits of rate-wide damage. So again, use your mitigation, stuff like Heart of Light and Dark Knight's version, or the Wings of Paladin. Passage of Arms are really good to mitigate those kinds of damage. Next, we have another knockback with double tank buster and another blue marker. So the blue marker just makes sure that they don't clip the tanks. Tanks make sure they don't clip each other or the group. And then there's going to be double Earthen Fist with Evil Earth. Now, there's two ways you can handle this. If he smashes, like I'm just going to take this as an example. So if he smashes left, then right, we need to stand here, move into the earth, the Evil Earth as it resolves. In this case, he smashes left twice, meaning that we have to outrange the first hit of the second hit of the Evil Earth and then move in. So since he smashes left twice, we outrange, or at least that's the call that we use. We wait for the second hit and then we move into the Evil Earth. It's random if Evil Earth spawns left or right. It's random if Titan cleaves both left, both right, left, right, right, left. So you really got to pay attention to what Titan is cleaving and to where the Evil Earth is, so that you know that you need to jump in immediately, or if you need to wait for an extra explosion. Then after this, we have our next Tectonic Uplift. The way we handle this is kind of similar to the first one. The people with markers need to move on to the front, people without markers move to the back. This will always be 2 DPS, a healer and a tank. So for this, our 2 healers are going to get gold again. We're going to put them on the most outward tile, because if they're too close to each other, they'll get tethered again, meaning that you can't kill the Gale, so that's kind of shit. So our healers will move out. They need to heal up the team first though, because the team is going to take damage. So healers position themselves on the most outward tile. So the DPS and the tank can start working on them. As this is going on, everybody is going to get a yellow marker, meaning that the healer needs to be on their own platform and not in the middle or something. And then the other 3 remaining players spread around, and this is happening on the outside as well. So this goes off, everybody takes their damage, the healers are freed, and then the healers can heal us up again, and then we go into the next set of mechanics. So first of all, we're gonna have blue markers again. For these we decided the people that are on the front platform, drop it on the front, people that are in the black back platform, drop it on the back. So here our healer is gonna run to the front, again on the most outward tile. Because, as you can see, if I rewind real quick, the front only has 1 safe spot from the weight of the land. meaning that the next mechanic, which is going to be orange markers again, they need to go stack on the back. So all the people that get orange, they run to the back because the front is not safe, or they kill the healer. And then the remaining 2 blues, they stay on top, again go to the most outward platform. And then he's gonna cast Earth and Fury again, so stack up in the middle, use mitigation, so that everybody can get healed up and make use of the mitigation. After this, more tumults. And now Titan is gonna start smashing platforms again. So here it's gonna be one of the left platforms. Wait to see which one it is. It is the one in the back. So me and the other tank move into the front for another Megalith double tank buster, so just use some cooldowns for this. Make sure the rest of the team does not stack for this. Then Titan is gonna smash another platform. This one is back right. He's always going to leave 2 adjacent platforms standing, so if he smashes left twice, you're gonna have front and back that are safe. If he smashes left, then right, it's always going to be front left, front right, or back left, back right. So you'll always have, you won't have diagonal platforms ever, because that will make the next mechanic kind of impossible. So now we spread out again. We have 1 blue marker, we have 3 yellows, and we have 4 oranges. So for this one, the blue marker goes far away. We kind of called it out where the blue marker was gonna go. They stand on the most outward platform. The oranges stack on the most innerward platform, and the 3 yellows, they spread around on the 3 remaining tiles. After this, stack up again for another Earth and Fury, so mitigate, heal up for this. And that's the end of phase 2. Now he's gonna do 1 final cast bar, which is Orogenesis, where he's going to birth Mini Titan again. There he is. This Mini Titan is gonna do another Earth and Fury as well. This time it hits a lot harder, and it will also leave a bleed or a dot on your whole party. The strength of the dot is also consistent with how much damage everybody took, if I'm not mistaken. Now, for the next mechanic. This whole phase consists pretty much of tight movement as a team. So, for the first round of mechanics, I guess I'll say, we have tanks and healers that will get an orange marker. All of the DPS will get a yellow one. So what will happen is, Weight of the Lands will start exploding, and these will go clockwise. So what you want to do is, you have your tank and healer team follow this explosion, and you have your 2 melee DPS drag behind, so that when these markers resolve, everybody is on a safe tile. And then that is that mechanic. Your 2 ranged DPS can run around on the outside edge. This mechanic, same as phase 2, it's gonna knock people back. 1 blue marker, so you want to be away with that one. And then your tanks will get a double tank buster. So we use arm's length for this one. Pop some cooldowns. This thing hits really hard, and your main tank is also still taking auto attacks from Mini Titan. So pay some extra attention to your main tank during this, because he will be taking a lot of damage. After this, Voice of the Land, just rate white. And then there's going to be some tumults. And another Voice of the Land, so mitigate. And then another Earth and Fury. So even more mitigation. It's really important that you plan your mitigation, your shields, your tank cooldowns, DPS cooldowns and such, so that you take the least amount of damage with these as possible. Now we go into round 2. Roles are reversed this time. All of your DPS are going to get an orange marker. All of your tanks and healers are going to get a yellow one. So we basically swap positions. Our DPS now are close to the explosions. The 2 tanks are on where the melee DPS were, and then our healers are on the outside ring. So first explosion, move in. Second explosion, move in. third explosion, move in, Marcus resolve, and then we have fourth explosion, and that's it. Now Titan is gonna do 2 fists across the arena again. This time it's double right, so we just stay on the left. Then Mini Titan is gonna do his triple tank buster again. You'll have your invulnerabilities back up for this one, so just yelling at my bar to run away from me. So to disengage real quick. Triple tank buster goes out. And then after this we have another megalith, so both tanks stack up and pop cooldowns. And then we decided to tank swap here so our paladin could use hallowed ground during the next carousel mechanic, I guess you could call it. Another Earth and Fury, so use mitigation. And then we have the final carousel mechanic. This time rolls are back to the same, so oranges are tank and healers, yellows are your DPS. So just handle it the same as you did the first time. And then the mechanic resolves. Titan is gonna punch twice again. This time he punches twice on the left side, so just stay on the right. I actually got kind of lucky with our Titan punches that we didn't have to move too much. Another Voice of the Land, use your mitigation with Tumults. So if you have Voice of the Land plus Tumults, stuff like Heart of Light and Dark Knight's Alternative are really good. Paladin's Wings and such are really good as well. Another Voice of the Land with Tumults. Healers weren't quite as ready for this one, so we have some people die here. Another Voice of the Land would be kill him right before this, which was really lucky, because if we didn't, we would have some dead people. But yeah, that's Titan. Those are all 4 of the fights. I hope this was kind of helpful for some people. I'll leave timestamps down in the description if you want to rewatch some of the fights, some of the mechanics. If you have some more questions about them, definitely feel free to ask them in the comments. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, if you like these kind of style of videos, definitely let me know. So I'll probably do them for the next Ultimate when I get around to finishing that one. And some of the future, maybe Extreme Primals or stuff like that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. If it was, let me know. Then I'll continue doing these in the future. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.